Cream as rich as an Irish brogue. Coffee as strong as a friendly hand. Sugar sweet as the tongue of a rogue. And whiskey smooth as the wit of the land. That is the original recipe for an Irish coffee. Though we don't have measurements, but we know what goes in it. This is essentially a grocery list, but the way it's said is beautiful. Welcome back, friends. It's Anders. Today we are making, you guessed it, Irish coffee. We're actually gonna make this two ways though. Now, some people are rather particular about what Irish coffee should be. I think most people think it is a hot drink that's gonna warm your bitter soul in the depths of an icy cold winter. But what if you don't want a hot one? What if you are in a hot place and you don't want a hot drink? Then you have a cold Irish coffee, specifically a cold brew Irish coffee. Which brings us to today's sponsor, Mr. Black. I've worked with these guys before. We'll talk more about this later, so thank you, Mr. Black. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for more sips, tips, and recipes, and let's go make an Irish coffee. Two ways to the bar. Okay, history of the Irish coffee. I like this story. So a long time ago, in the early 1940s, there was a man named Joe Sheridan. He's the guy that wrote the poem that I was reading earlier, and he's the one who created the Irish coffee. Now, he was a chef and bartender at a restaurant in Foynes Port, which was outside of Limerick, Ireland, and this was a major air base. The story goes that one night, it was cold and the weather was terrible, and there was a flight leaving Foynes Port, and they were going to New York City. Actually, New York City's this way. So they're flying over the Atlantic and the weather is awful. So they have to turn around and come back to Foynes Port. And when they landed, Joe, having empathy for these cold and weary travelers, made them all Irish coffees. Legend has it that one of the American passengers turned to Joe and said, "Hey buddy, what is this coffee? Brazilian coffee?" Something like that, I paraphrase. But I assume he's referring to the coffee beans. Joe, in response, said, "No, that is Irish coffee. You moron." I don't think he said that. I like to think that he said that. And so there's the name Irish coffee. And it was actually a big success. People would go to this airport to have Irish coffees. But that's not the end of the story. Fast forward nearly a decade to 1952. Stanton Delaplane, who was a writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, goes to this place and has an Irish coffee. And he loves it. So he comes back to San Francisco and he tells his friend Jack Kepler, who was a bartender at the Buena Vista Cafe. From there, things blew up. The Buena Vista Cafe became known for that drink. In fact, there's a plaque there that says, "Home of America's first Irish coffee." Something like that. There's a plaque and they make thousands upon thousands of this stuff. So anyway, now you can get Irish coffees anywhere because everybody knows about it. You can go to a dive bar and get an Irish coffee. You can go to a high-end cocktail spot and get an Irish coffee. People can be very particular about their Irish coffees too. Which whiskey you use, what kind of coffee you use, what kind of sugar you use, if you use sugar cubes, if you use a syrup, how much should you whip the cream? Is the cream sweetened? Boy, there are a million different ways to have it. Today, I'm gonna be making two Irish coffees. One is gonna be the traditional hot Irish coffee, and then we are gonna do a cold brew Irish coffee. Now the booze. For the hot Irish coffee, we're gonna need Irish whiskey, a rich Demerara syrup. This is 2 to 1, 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. Heavy cream to float on top. We're gonna whip that up. I'll show you how I do it momentarily. And of course, fresh, piping hot coffee. Now for the cold brew Irish coffee, we're gonna need Mr. Black Cold Brew Coffee Liqueur, Irish whiskey, and heavy cream once again. Now I'm using Powers Gold Label because it holds up well in a cocktail, but use whatever Irish whiskey you'd like. Now let's talk coffee liqueur, specifically Mr. Black Cold Brew Coffee Liqueur. That's a mouthful. Cold brew coffee liqueur. Let's just call it Mr. Black. It's a really good product. I enjoy this. In fact, it is my favorite coffee liqueur. It tastes like coffee. These guys roast their own beans and then they make a cold brew coffee to make the liqueur. It creates a really bold, strong coffee liqueur that requires 0 artificial flavors. It's not overly sweet. It's just a touch of sugar. I like my coffee black, so I don't want super sweet coffee things. That's just me personally. Also, because they are sponsoring, if you use my code Anders10 at checkout, you will receive 10% off your purchase of Mr. Black Coffee Liqueur. So if you don't already have a bottle, go check out their website and grab one for yourself. Let's build. All right, first we're gonna do the hot version. So grab an Irish coffee glass, whatever your favorite is, and we are gonna wanna temper it. So grab some hot water, pour it into the glass to heat it up. Not gonna take long. Dump that right out. And we're gonna start with the sugar. Into the glass, we'll do 1/4 of an ounce of the rich Demerara syrup. To that, add 1 ounce of Irish whiskey, then top it off with hot coffee. This is gonna be about 3.5 ounces. Leave a little room on top for the whipped cream. So to whip the cream, I'll do this really quickly because we wanna keep this hot. Into a shaking tin, pour a little bit of heavy cream. We're gonna whip it up real fast in the shaking tin. Don't overshake it or it becomes really thick. And we wanna make sure it's still pourable. And then we can float on top of the coffee. I like to use the back of a bar spoon and just slowly pour it across the top. Beautiful. Looks kind of like a little Guinness. There it is. Let's give it a quick taste while it's hot, and then we will move on to the cold brew Irish coffee. Cheers. That's one of the best tasting things you will ever have. That is really, really good. Irish whiskey with the coffee. They blend nice and easy and you get this smooth cream that cools it down. Absolutely wonderful. If you want, you could top this off with a little grated nutmeg, a little cinnamon. If you wanted more coffee flavor, substitute 1 ounce of coffee for an ounce of Mr. Black and you'd get a stronger coffee flavor and a stronger cocktail. But we're gonna do the Mr. Black next. So the cold brew Irish coffee. Now you could just build this in a glass on the rocks, it'd be great, but I'm gonna fancy it up a little bit. So grab a mixing glass and to that, we will add 1 ounce of Irish whiskey, and then we'll add 2 ounces of Mr. Black. Now we can add ice and stir. There we are, about 30 seconds or so. That's probably good. Grab a chilled glass and strain the cocktail right into the glass. Just like before, we're gonna top it with whipped cream and float it right on top. There we are. The cold brew Irish coffee. Cheers. That's really tasty. You get the burn of alcohol a bit more because the Mr. Black has alcohol in it, but it's really toned down from the heavy cream. Good, bold, strong coffee. You go in thinking it's gonna be hot, and it's not. There you have it, hot, cold. Thank you to Mr. Black for sponsoring today's video. Thank you for watching. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Like and subscribe. Don't forget to use the code Anders10 at Mr. Black. Check out their socials. I'll leave links down below, and I will see you next time. Cheers.